Hello, the boys, Simon, Burge. Burge, good to see you. It's been a while, actually. How have you guys been keeping?
Good. Thank you. I'm buzzing after yesterday's result.
Yeah.
England through to the next round. That was a scare and a half.
Did you think we were going to win that? Because in the bar I was in yesterday, people are in disarray. You could literally hear a pin drop, and we didn't even look like scoring. I say we. Obviously, when England play football, I just jump on the bandwagon because that's what I do. Sam, did you catch the game yesterday?
I did. I was so stressed. I've without all the years of watching flipping England play in pubs and everything, they just put you through hell because they just don't make anything easy. Why can't you just have an easy round? Like France did, who obviously clearly feel like they're going to win. They're just looking at the awesome attack.
I think football fans are probably just as fickle as cryptocurrency holders, because one minute they're like, Tuchel's got to go. He's rubbish. He selected the wrong team. And then Harry Kane obviously scores two absolute worldies. And the thing is, I think unless you live in the country, you don't actually realize the fandom. Like one of the private members in Carrot Lane, he was actually at the game, a guy called Michael. He's been a part of the community for a while now, which is amazing. And he said he couldn't actually believe the atmosphere. And it's interesting the way that European football fans, it's like something out of 300. When he's like, he says, Spartans, what is your job, or what do you do? And then they're like, ooh. And it's a bit like that with people in the UK, especially people in Europe around football. It's crazy. And I can imagine being an American in the stadium and just going like, what is this? This is like just a different. But you think people have grown up, just based. It's like literally in your DNA, and it's the reason why I just love when the World Cup comes around, the Euros, and I support England, even though I'm not even English. It is what it is.
What's so weird? But we all feel the same way. If you're a fan of any team, it just everyone reacts the same way. I always watch people when the goal goes in. When England scored, and then we got the winner. You just see. I was doing exactly the same thing as they were. I was, in fact, when the first goal went in for the equaliser, I was going, because you see, I was less going. Yeah, I was going relief, and I said, to
myself, That's for a lot of people.
16. I said, I do apologise for.
Did you see the viral video? Did you see the viral video? The guys they filmed him on CCTV, and he's at the bar.
I'm just looking at it now.
He's ordering the round of drinks. He's got 3 beers, and obviously Harry Kane scores the equaliser, and he doesn't know what to do. So he takes the pint and he throws it. He throws the pint of beer in his mate's face, and his mate's like, "What the fuck?" And obviously this guy's
his mate takes it quite well, actually.
Yeah, they start laughing and hugging. But this is also the thing. It breaks down so many barriers. I mean, like, obviously, I watched it at the cricket club. Obviously, there's a bunch of us. We've been playing cricket for years, and I guess some of the guys, some of them don't talk to each other and stuff. And then all of a sudden, someone scores a goal, and you're hugging just anyone, and you're like, it doesn't actually matter. It's like
I was at a garden in a garden at a pub on my own, just with some random guy. I was sitting at a table with some random guys. We're fucking dapping up. We're hugging. People are going to everyone. Like someone comes out of nowhere, taps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Let's go!"
Yeah, I
know. Can I just say, about 10 years ago, I was in a pub standing up on an elevated level, and there was a really massive guy next to me. I didn't know him, and we were watching the football, and we scored. And for some unknown reason, I turned, got a hold of his arm, and bit it because I was so. And he went, "What are you doing, mate?" I went, "I'm so sorry." It brings out the madness. Mate, I say we are going to Mexico, and it's going to be we're going to suffer because it's altitude, isn't it? And
well, also
Tuchel is saying we're not prepared for it. Mexico.
They're trying to sabotage the hotel as well. Have you seen some of the Mexicans? They basically, I don't know whether there's like the bloody cartel or something, but they stand outside these hotels and keep the team up all night as they're kind of. I'm like, guys, this is some fucking. Anyway,
it's going to be tough, very, very tough.
The World Cup means so much, and even the Americans are getting a taste of it. They're through to the next round as well.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know the result of that because it's like fucking in the middle of the night for us. I didn't
It's
even
2-0. 2-0 against Bosnia. And they did get a red card though. So their star striker Balogun, he scored a goal in like the 45th minute. He got red carded in the 64th minute. So 1-0, they're 1-0 up at their 64th minute. They are down to 10 men, and they managed to get a goal by a free kick in the 82nd minute.
That's exciting.
Does he miss the next game?
I actually don't know. I don't know what the rules are on that. I mean, usually you would, but I don't know if that is the case. I think
you would. Yeah, I think he does. One last thing, so I know we talked about NFTs and crypto and football, but I would really love to know how it's going down in the US. Actually, has it caused a buzz or?
It has. My friend went to he's over in the States, and he a friend from the UK that makes content on like TikTok flew over, and they both went to Dallas, and which is a World Cup city, and they were saying it was mental out there. Like it's like everyone's out, everyone's at the pubs, etc., watching stuff.
I just want to shout out Jake on LinkedIn. He's part of the V fam. He's just said, "Good morning, guys. Good to see you, Jake. Really appreciate you diving in. Also, really appreciate obviously the 26 of you that are in here. If you just give the stream a share, we'd really appreciate it. It is how the stream grows. Obviously, we will get on to some really interesting topics around Bitcoin, macro, crypto, NFTs, some of the stuff that's happening in the token works ecosystem. It's going to be a juicy one. We're going to obviously try and condense these into kind of 45 minutes to make them as valuable as possible, which is really interesting. We'll kind of pivot into what's happening in the macro. I know a lot of people kind of start off in crypto. You dip your toe in it because usually a friend of yours has said something along the lines of like, this crypto's good. You lean into it, then your risk appetite improves. Then before you know it, you're like a fucking macro expert because you're wondering how this thing is going up and down. And because they're just a product of financial conditions, and it gets you looking at politics. And Burge is like probably the foremost expert on the Strait of Hormuz at the moment. But the main catalyst out of all of this is obviously the Fed chair, the new Fed chair. He's a personal Trump hire. Trump has been very vocal on the timeline around Jerome Powell being too late to lower rates. He's obviously wanted to get him out for a long time. He's then called Kevin Warsh straight out of Central Casting. Warsh is our boy. He's going to lower rates. Midterms in November, so obviously there's a lot of political incentive. Have you guys seen the recent interview that Kevin Warsh has had and some of the stuff that he said on the timeline? Because I can play the video in a second.
It'd be good to see that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because what he's essentially saying is that he's not too concerned about inflation, which is the thing that is obviously keeping rates higher. The jobs report is job losses have gone up. I think it's at 4.2%. Or new jobs created, I think it was around about 52,000. They were expecting it to come in a lot higher than that. So it's really interesting. He's saying that AI is improving business conditions, and he's more leaning towards using AI to improve productivity versus being hawkish on inflation, which essentially in a roundabout kind of way means he's probably going to lower rates. But what I'll do is I'll get the video up. It's really, really interesting.
This is what you've been saying for we've been saying on the podcast for a while, right?
Yeah,
Jaden, which is that the market had it wrong, that they said that this, like, Kevin Walsh was going to come in and he was going to, in the past he has been hawkish, and you were saying actually no, like
he's going to be dovish on business conditions. Yep. And the thing is like if some clever person did a chart on, they looked at his comments dating back to 2008 because he was the Fed governor in 2008, and he was at that time hawkish on inflation straight after the Great Recession when interest rates were at zero. So he's basically a political weather vane. He basically, whichever way the Republicans go, he leans towards them. And at the moment, you've got a president who's pro-business, and he's leaning towards that. Now, I couldn't give a shit whether he was a Democrat or Republican. As long as he's good for my crypto, That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine with me. But this is an interesting video. I'm gonna hit play. Watch this.
Markets are steady. We said the demand side of the economy was solid. We said the supply side of the economy, especially capex and productivity. Again, this is before we see the fruits of AI. We said that was strong. I don't want to sound like a Wall Street newsletter and update that with recent events because we follow trends. And I'll reinforce something that President Lagarde just said. We're all in the price stability business. That might not be our only business, but if there was a common thing I heard over the last couple of days, it was open-mindedness on these questions of AI, open-mindedness on productivity. But we've all looked around and we've seen that prices are too high. And I don't think I'm the only one on this stage that's recommitted to deliver price stability.
So the market was right to interpret your first news conference as hawkish.
Nice try.
Yeah, I'm not. I've just gotten advice from the senior statesman on this group not to do that. But I'll say this: expectations of inflation over the first 4 months, first 4 weeks of this period, they've come down. Inflation risks have come down. Again, in our business, we don't want to over-determine things. But if there were people in household or the business sector and the financial markets who thought that this central bank was going to be comfortable with an inflation objective above 2%, well, I guess they'd be disappointed. We're going to deliver price stability in the US. That's what this committee has signed up to do. And our objective is to do that. The tactics, the strategy, and the rest, that's still to come.
No matter.
So that's really interesting. The way he's obviously suggesting that he's very much open-minded to AI improving business conditions. The thing is, I have the context of his previous interviews. So I did a big research piece on him, and I went through about 3-4 hours of footage of him before he was Fed chair. And one of the things he was saying is that the AI race is something that the US need to win, and it's a game between the US and China. And the game theory is that no one can stay still, because obviously the AI is moving at I think it's the fastest adopted technology in all of human history. And for US to win that race, they're going to need huge capital expenditure. When he says capex, what he means is capital expenditure. But for that to happen, they're going to have to lower rates, and businesses are going to need money to reinvest in AI. So it's going to be really interesting, because I think the silver bullet, certainly how it pertains to crypto, is that rates come down and debts get rolled, and then all of a sudden there's surplus money in the system. There's more money to go after these assets.
But was he not saying there that prices? He said that if people thought that they were going to tolerate inflation over 2%, they would be disappointed. Basically saying that he wants inflation to be at 2%, not over 2%.
Yeah.
And he said prices are still high there. So is that a little bit of a sign of, that rates aren't going to come down yet? Because, if he still thinks prices are high right now, then that probably sounds like he's delaying rate cuts until prices are in a better place.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Iran thing needs to be in the review mirror, because part of the high inflation is the oil prices, because that gets passed on through goods, and it's a tax on the entire system, so that gets passed on through goods and services. So the Iran thing's got to be in the review mirror. But just based on his comments, crypto has rallied. So it's it doesn't matter what we think; it's how the market perceives it, and they're perceiving it as he's dovish.
Yes, well, he did say risk. He said in inflation, he said risks have eased for inflation.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign.
Yeah.
It's definitely, if people thought he was going to come in and that they had that picture of him being hawkish and they thought he'd probably raise rates, well, it's definitely called that off. If anything, I would say he's kind of in the middle right now. He's not committing to rate cuts at this very moment, and he's not raising rates. He says, I think he's feeling pretty good in the position that they're at, and still acknowledging that they need to come down a little bit for him to be really happy with inflation. And when he's really happy with inflation, then you'd imagine rate cuts can be on the table.
I think that from what I was reading, that the reason we've bounced a bit is actually a relief that what their message is, not so much inflation's going to come down as it were, but he's not going to put the rates up. He's not going to increase. And I think, which is a kind of sign of the market, people get bullish on the fact he's not going to do something rather than bullish on the fact he's going to lower, which is kind of interesting in itself. But also, I believe there was disappointing US jobs data as well, which has added to that upside. So, you know, there's a few factors here.
Yeah, no, exactly. In terms of where you guys think crypto's headed in the short term, obviously there's a whole bunch of people playing the 4-year cycle still. Obviously, I don't think it exists except for the fact that there's probably the memetics of people believing it's still in place. I'm getting a disproportionate messages from people who say, on obviously various different platforms, saying that the bottom is going to be in October because that's 12 months after the previous cycle high. Do you guys buy into that thesis? Do you kind of think that happens?
It's interesting because there's a part of me thinks, no, how can it be? You know, things have changed and moved on. We're not in what we used to be. It's not so early, etc., etc. But the truth of the matter is, and it could be the psychology of it, people just, you know, making their predictions almost come true, and we all kind of go with it psychologically. But I actually do think it will start to bounce or start to come up in the autumn after October. I think there will be an increase, but I don't know how much of that is just people's expectations are making it happen, or whether, don't forget, a lot of things go in 4-year cycles. You know, 4 years is quite a traditional, in the traditional markets, as 4-year cycles. So maybe there is something there. Because I know some of the people I watch, some of the influencers, and I tune in and they say, I know everyone said it's different, but I can tell you, I really still believe we have this 4-year cycle. And if enough people are going around saying that to their followers, then maybe it happens, you know, which I don't mind if it starts kicking in later. Good time to be buying now.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, I always think if people have a feeling of euphoria in one direction, it never usually happens in crypto. You know, like it usually either people front running it or something different happens. Like if everyone's pushing in one direction, I think, that just never plays out. It never plays out the way that you want it to, or the way that you kind of anticipate it to. I think the memetics are still there of people playing the cycle, even though it's a lot of the stuff that's happening in the economy is not necessarily a market that's overheating. So it's not necessarily signaling, you know, you don't have multiple jobs. One of the jokes I crack is, you know, your fucking neighbor isn't driving up on his driveway with a finance whip and he works in a call center. Or, you know, someone down the road isn't buying £1,000 or $1,000 garden gnome, or, you know, doing it, or it's not watch your mouth season for your job, for your boss. You haven't got multiple jobs to go to. So we're not in that kind of end of cycle euphoria feeling, which is why this shouldn't be a bear market, because it's just based on financial conditions, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, the thing that we get stimulated by the most is NFTs. CryptoPunks have been up 10% in the last 24 hours. So have Bored Ape Yacht Club. A huge function of certainly the NFT ecosystem is ETH. Now, ETH is down because it's indexed against Bitcoin. How are you guys feeling, Burge? I'll kind of pass it on to you. How are you feeling about the current state of NFTs at the moment?
NFTs, we're in a really interesting spot right now. I feel like the rest of the year, the next 6 months will be a big kind of factor into how NFTs are going to perform over the next few years, because I have a feeling with NFTs we're in this kind of time where, and we spoke about it before the live, we're seeing new mints pop up here and there. We're seeing a little bit of excitement and almost like the seeds of a revival potentially with NFTs. And at the same time, it's way too soon and too small to really to call it that. And obviously, we've been through a big period of hurt, right? Crypto, as we touched on, is down right now. and the physical collectibles market is booming. And we also saw, even prior to that, we've seen stocks have boomed. We've seen gold and silver boom. So it's almost like NFTs was like that one thing that didn't really have a bullish period. So I can imagine a lot of people who are holding NFTs, including us three, are hurting right now. And at the same time, I still remain optimistic that, you know, there is something round the corner when market conditions improve, that NFTs is going to show some signs of life again. I think we have kind of touched on it before on the live in terms of when you go on NFT price floor and you look at the website, you know, these projects are up. And even if you look now, actually, it's still a sea of green in the top 50, top 100 projects.
Yeah.
Like the majority of them are green, and that's with crypto down. I mean,
it's going into a headwind. It's going into
it's
NFTs are basically going straight into a crypto fucking headwind, and because a huge function of these, especially the ones you're looking for on NFT floor, if you're doing it by market cap, most of them are ETH. ETH is down. I mean, I saw this funny meme. It was like if you had bought ETH 6 years ago, it'd be the same price. And funnily enough, it was at a time where the FTX debacle was happening and crypto had dropped by 90%. Obviously, ETH was down so bad it couldn't go down any further. But obviously, all the FTX folks got basically refunded if they had ETH. They got their ETH back. So it was the only one that retained its value, but it's also the only one that's not the only one that's lagged. Which I think is interesting. Simon, you said something really interesting off there around kind of collectibles driving some of potentially the next wave of stuff. I know you've been kind of deep into that.
Yeah, and I was thinking it was interesting because we were talking as well, weren't we, Burge, about the fact that Gary was saying, will there be a bubble burst in the collectibles market, the physicals, which may well be the case. I mean, nothing ever lasts forever, but goes in waves. But there is no doubt that the phygital market, which is the revolving door between, I think, the NFT world and the real world assets, it's that bridge we talked about last week, that's up 60% in transaction growth. Which is really interesting. There's a lot of major brands attaching themselves to the phygitals. Clearly, the real world assets are booming. And I really just think NFTs generally are just going to become omnipresent, aren't they? They're going to be everywhere because it's the most obvious place for people to store proof of ownership, whether it's in art, whether it's in real estate. It's just a much more seamless, faster process. We all know this, and I think whatever happens, there's two things: it will come back, and it will be very different because it will be a much more mature market meeting a real world, a new world of phygitals and RWA collectibles and all that kind of stuff. The other thing is, I was going to say is, I also think this is a great time to be taking a step back and looking at what some of the collections are doing, or the teams, or the businesses. Whether it's the Chimpers, the Doodles, the Bored Ape Yachts, the V-Friends, whoever it might be, and just you've got time right now before perhaps it goes a bit crazy, you know, down the line in 6 months, to go, actually, what are the teams doing? What are they tangibly doing? And they're sorting themselves out now. It's happening.
That was going to be my next
bigger ones
question.
Emerging.
And my next question was going to be, well, where do you see the value? I mean, I think you know, my whole thesis of this is just attention that leads to buying flows. The things that get eyeballs on it just drives pricing, even if it's very fleeting. You know, like an example would be people sharing stuff about Nakamigos and it then driving the pricing and the speculation around it. And I think the teams that can drive huge attention flows generally from founders who are very good marketers. Like Luca Netz is a beast marketer. Obviously, Gary Vee's a beast marketer. These are guys that can sustain attention, and that attention usually leads to those buying flows. But obviously, the other obvious categories are history. You know, there is a whole world of people that do not know that there's an historical antiquities market. There's always a reason for people to go back to those projects. And then obviously the obvious culturally significant art, X copy, Beeple. I know there's an article, Die with Most Liked, which Raoul Power's been sharing quite often, because he kind of pokes holes at middle America and that kind of corporate life, and basically just working 9 to 5. It's very interesting how he's sort of capturing content.
And maybe we need to separate the price of NFTs right now from the actual hard work by some businesses and teams in NFTs who are just doing real things and are showing signs of it. Yeah, I'm far less concerned about the price than I am about what these people are doing behind the scenes, and some are just doing it, you know, and consistently, and are being innovative.
When you look at projects, because I know that you lean, I know Burge, you kind of gone more towards the curio cards and the historical stuff with your weighting, which is interesting. But Simon, you go for the teams. Obviously, I'll come on to you in a second, Burge. But Simon, when you're looking at a team, because you've got a real good spidey senses for this stuff, you spot things a little bit earlier than everyone else, because it's something that you see there. And I don't know if that's because of your business background, but what is it you actually look for?
I look for a meaningful vision and a really practical, clear plan of how people are going to get there, that they're able to communicate and express, and they're able to show, rather like, you know, with the Del Mundos, I know it's a slow burner, but what they keep doing is proof of concept, for example. So what they want to do is take small steps, but they want to prove at every juncture that they've kind of proven the concept, proof of concept. So they, you know, they'll move on incrementally. And I know soon it's going to be about the climata, the actual, you know, the process of being able to take people choosing what they believe should be to climate projects, and those charities getting it. Those kinds of things for me are really tangible. When you got chimpers who are relentless, aren't they, on X? Absolutely relentless. And it's not about the floor price. And they're doing so many activations and partnerships. And what they're doing, we talked about it last week, Jaden, about the collections which are reaching beyond Web3 bubble and making connections in the bigger, wider world and actually doing something.
Well, the vast majority of their audience don't even know that they're an NFT project, which I think is fascinating, because they get the most money.
Yes.
It's crazy. Like,
and maybe, sorry, go on, Jaden.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I do these live streams on TikTok. There's like, you know, just staring down the barrel of a camera, and there's like 300 people on there, and they're like, oh no, NFT is a bunch of bullshit. And then I'm like, most of them follow the Chimpers account. I'm like, guys, you know that Chimpers account that you play around with, and it's like, it's a little bit, it's very playful, and they're like, yeah, that's an NFT project. And then I say to them, you know that GIF, the penguin GIF, which is basically a meme now. You know that started as an NFT project, don't you? And then
what do they say? How do they know? And what do they kind of go? Oh,
well, the problem is that when someone has an idea about something, it's a bit like politics. You're never going to change their worldview, and they always fight. They always fight against it. You know, I have it on LinkedIn as well. Like, I will say stuff around NFTs, and CEOs, branding experts, marketing experts all get on there, and they basically say, I've lost my mind, and, you know, say certain things to sound edgy, and look, I screenshotted your ape, and look, now I own it. And then I go onto their profile and say, how I screenshotted your profile looks like I own that too. And it's just like, it's people who are very intelligent, but have actually become their parents. They've just done the thing that they used to take the mick out their parents about. You know, like my folks, their whole thing, because they came from South Africa, was, why would I buy something online when the shop is just down the road? That doesn't make sense. And then it just became a thing of, oh no, it would just be too expensive to deliver it. Can you imagine if I wanted to order soap or something and I had to order it, it'd just be too expensive. Like, why would, because you have to pay for the delivery. And at the time, deliveries were like through the ceiling, and it didn't make sense in people's minds. And the same thing's happening with NFTs, because they're like, well, why would I own something when I can't feel and touch it? Well, you own a lot of things that you can't feel and touch that have a lot of value. It's just like,
exactly.
Oh, fuck it,
and actually, I love that, with the right click image.
Yeah.
And they go, well, so I've got it now. You just want to say, so when are you selling it then? And
Yeah.
how much you plan to sell it for?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a
Because
great
that's the kind of thing. So yeah, it's brilliant that you've
Well, the
got
one I
that
use,
for Bored Ape.
the one I use, Simon, is I say, oh, I've just walked outside my house. I've taken a picture of my neighbor's car. Looks like I own that too. And then they're just like, their fucking brains doesn't want to do it.
I know. Yes.
I just want to bring you into this, Burge, because I know that you're very heavy into the historical stuff. Obviously, I think they're probably the best risk-adjusted stuff because you just need like time to do the heavy lifting. But how's everything going with that? Any particular projects you're looking at?
Yeah, so I mean, right now I'm not looking at like new. Despite I touched on it before with new mints and they are exciting and it's a positive thing for the space. I'm looking personally at kind of shifting my portfolio to the handful of projects that I really truly believe in, and Curio Cards is one of them. I actually flipped my strategy with Curio Cards. At one time I was looking at kind of diversifying, and I picked like 4 or 5 different NFTs that I liked in the Curio Cards collection, and then I just thought, hold on here, I feel like the Apple is the most iconic one, and I also felt like, I compared back to back in the bull run where prices were, and I felt like apples now were extremely cheap and also seemed to be the thing that people would, if there was like a serious collector coming in, and they wanted to buy a Curio Card, the first Curio Card they would buy is probably an apple because it's the number one.
So I remember those selling for 23 Ethereum, which I think was around about $75,000 at the time.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, what's the price at the moment?
Right now, the price sits at you could buy one straight away for $760, but they've really been trading around the $400, $500 range. Wow. I've bought 19 over the last 6 months, which is insane. It was a lot of going on every day and like updating my offer so that I was the highest offer. I didn't use a bot or anything like that. I did everything manual. And I ended up buying most of them through this guy, Mesrogi, who was selling off his entire Curio Card collection. He had a bunch of them unwrapped. And so he would wrap like 20 and then he'd sell them off like every day or every 2 days. And then he'd wait a few weeks and he'd wrap another 20. It was this whole elongated process. But essentially, I became like his biggest buyer. And I just bought up these apples and I'm at 19. I really want to get to like 20. And I'll probably call it there. And then other than that, other than Curio Cards, the big one is obviously CryptoPunks. I've toyed with the idea of selling off everything and potentially buying a CryptoPunk. It'd be a big risk though. That'd be the big problem, would be, putting all of my eggs in one basket and then needing it to perform relatively, soon, for me to be like in a good position. But CryptoPunks is obviously a massive one. And then, I still VFriends is a massive one for me.
Yeah, just on that CryptoPunks play, and this would be interesting, like the space generally, or the NFT space is infinite regret, especially if you're a maxi. If you're like, this is, I think the biggest weakness of Bitcoin maxis is the fact that they're stuck in one asset. And the problem is you can't do anything with it in an uptrend. So what people do is they try and use the asset to trade around. So they get leverage against it. And what they think is a strength actually ends up being a weakness. And it's the same in NFTs. If you're holding one NFT, that is a weakness. And if you're in a position where you have to be pot committed to one token, that could end up being your downfall because you try and trade around it, or you sell it into a pump because you need to get the cash out.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Because you're pot committed to this thing. And then it carries on going, and then it becomes infinite regret, and you're like, fuck. And then you try and trade your way out of it. Yeah. Then you've got to trade yourself out of it, but you've got the tax event on the sale, and it just becomes a mess. Whereas I think if you can size into a position and have at least 2 of that thing, or it just makes it a little bit easier, and also you don't have the infinite regret thing. Whereas it's like, okay, listen, it's very difficult to buy 2 fucking CryptoPunks. Like I don't know.
Of course.
I happen to think for you, Burge, if you could get one, it'd be an amazing thing because all of a sudden you'd have. We certainly saw it during the bull market in 2021, which is anyone who had a Bored Ape or a CryptoPunk, it was basically a gateway drug to 20,000 followers on X.
Yeah, true.
It was fucking like Franklin, the one I keep fucking forgetting his name, the Bored Ape guy who owned 50 Bored Apes. He had 100,000 followers till his account got banned or hacked or something. But he had 100,000 followers just by owning apes and trading apes and being on the timeline. So, but this is why I think NFTs beat everything, because it's just the art layer gets more attention flows. And like you owning that punk, if that changes to your PFP, and heavens forbid there's some technology which you can connect your wallet, like they had the tape or whatever. Heavens forbid we have that this cycle, and you're a verified punk holder. Man, you get 20,000 followers, and then all of a sudden on the back end, your fucking meetups become a lot easier, mate, because he's a punk holder.
Yes, buy one for that. Buy one for that, only for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the apex. It's you're good, right? Yeah. Everything else you're taking a bet on, right? VeeFriends.
Correct.
I know, I believe it's going to perform well, but I'm still, but in reality, what most people are, hesitant. Why they might be hesitant buying a Series 1 VeeFriend right now if they had like $10,000 or more, or 10 Ethereum, let's say, and they wanted to spend and buy some NFTs for in anticipation for the next bull run. The reason why people would be hesitant buying a VeeFriend, just like any other project, is but is it gonna like hold parity with the other top tier projects? Is it going to keep pace? Is the big question. And I think VeeFriends will, but in the past, it's definitely been shunned a bit by the crypto Twitter NFT community, and it hasn't got maybe the love that it deserved. Whereas, I know someone who was saying in the founders chat, they've decided to sell off a couple of Series 1 NFTs and buy some mutants. Now that's a really interesting play, and that's because they already have they have another Series 1 already, spec, I think. But the reason why they're going for mutants is because they know Bored Ape is such a big project. It's a blue chip project, and they feel they can bank on that. There's for sure.
It's funny. Exactly. Just going to circle back to VeeFriends, because as soon as you said that, I had a fucking flashback from when I messaged Spencer a couple of years ago. And this was I don't know actually when 11th of February 2024. So this is a couple of years ago. Obviously, this is probably in the bear of the bear. And I said, I just thought, fuck it, I'll message Spencer, because he was doing that NFT. I can't remember what the daily show was that they were doing, and they were talking about different projects. And I just asked him what his thoughts were on VeeFriends, and if he owned any. And he replied to me, "Don't have any, never had any. I don't know about it, to be honest. Gary is an important person in Web3, but they are super ugly. Hard to see them coming back." is what he said. Is what he said to me. Now, I actually think the simplest answer is the answer here. And with VeeFriends Series 1, I think the reason why they've held steady, by the way, and quite ironically,
outperforming
Moonbirds by fucking 3 times.
And other projects as well, especially when things were heading down on NFTs. You found Series 1 and Series 2 were quite stable.
Yeah, but also, if you think about it, this just being about attention, at least the buying flows, and people want to social signal their asset. I love VeeFriends, but let's just be brutally honest. They're not the prettiest to look at. I know they're doodles, and I know they're handwritten, and it's provenance and all that, but people don't want to put that as their profile picture. And when they do, they're just like, so it may change in the future when everything gets AI'd and everything's so efficient that actually you want some fallibility. And maybe
and they're playing that long game of, we're going to make you fall in love with these characters so that you might actually want to rep the Gratitude Gorilla Series 1, because it's just like the original Mickey Mouse sketch. You're such a fan of Mickey Mouse or Simpsons that you're willing to put up with that not so amazing image because of what it represents, which is a character that people have fallen in love with. Obviously, that is quite a way down the line, you would imagine, but it could happen. I mean, it's the only one I would argue that could do that, or it's the one that has the biggest chance at the moment of doing that. I mean, Bored Ape, I don't think you're, or Pudgy Penguins right now, like, I don't think it's not the same as VFriends. VFriends has 250 plus different characters. Pudgy Penguins and Bored Apes are very similar looking, right? So that even though they might have these characters in their own universe, they aren't like what VFriends is trying to do with like a Mickey Mouse and a Bart Simpson and a, you know, it's almost like they could have 200, they could have 10 characters that become well known around the world.
Yeah.
Exactly. I had a thought, you know, with Other Side, you know, you can now, especially I think with the studio that's run by G's Ape, who help people to transition to make their NFTs into 3D models to roam the other side. I just haven't had this thought. Be quite a fun experiment for Gary to do, is just not because it will be the finished article, but to go to that studio and say, do you know what I want? I want some of my VFriends Series 1 to be running around the other side. I want you to reimagine how they may be, just for a bit of fun. It's not necessarily the end thing, but I just thought it'd be, you know, that would be a way of sort of seeing it in as an actual character in a 3D world. But it's just, I mean, it's just off the way. A couple of things for me is putting aside VFriends Series 1, and one day, you know, I will. You're so right, Jaden, about owning more than one. And sometimes there is a danger of putting all your eggs in one basket. And there's also a danger of being too widely spread. And I bet you right now, if I went into my ridiculous, overly spread portfolio in my wallets, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to sell that, and sell that, and sell that, and sell that, and sell that, I would be able to instantly get two more or one more of each of some of the primary ones outside of VFriends that I really believe in. Chimpers, Bored Ape Yacht Club, Kleinosaurs, and I do have a Doodles, and I do have a good feeling about them for the future. The moment I have two of those, you're so right about, you just feel, you have a different feeling, don't you? If you got three, even better. But I think it's a psychological thing, because you're always saying, Jaden, quite rightly, the trouble is when someone's got one, they don't want to sell. And that can, and
this
that
is
can
the
be
beauty
good
of the
and
supply
not
crunch
good,
it creates,
you know?
as well. The beauty of the supply crunch is everyone just thought, well, I'll just buy one in that because I've got exposure to it, without realizing, hold on a second, if it does well, it's like this infinite regret of, it goes up, but I can't sell it because I've only got one. It's a function of the built-in supply friction, or the supply crunch it creates, which is something you want to say something there.
Well, all I was going to say is, we have mentioned this before, but I think there is this tension between people wanting to make money now versus being prepared for the long haul. And that's where you get this sort of falling into no man's land, where neither do you really invest properly into the long-term projects, nor do you really have the trading nous, which most of us don't, to make money out of new mints the whole time. I know some people do. And I was talking to a friend about it about a year ago, and he said, look, you're investing in this for the longer term, primarily, that's what I'm hearing, but you kind of got a bit excited by the 2021 potential to make money by flipping. So why don't you just focus your attention in making an income in the world of crypto and NFTs, particularly, not by buying and selling, by providing a service, or doing, like, you know, Jaden, like you're doing with Carrot Lane is a perfect example. Then you get your sense of being part of this amazing environment, which we don't know where it's going, and it may take a long time. But you're still really active in it. You're not actively trading, you're actively contributing to the space, and maybe even with your knowledge and your skills, able to get something back from it that isn't just about selling NFTs.
It might be very interesting, mate. The three of us could be opening up a show at some live event or something. Who knows?
Yes, let's do it. Sell merch, Carrot Lane merch.
Maybe.
Let's do it.
I just want to shout out Tay, who is also a private member at Carrot Lane. He's in our group. He was the one who actually picked up the mutants, which was pretty cool. He shared the live stream. He joins us every week, which I really appreciate, and obviously everyone else. I want to just segue quickly, because we're going to make this a slightly shorter episode, but one of the other things that's happening on the timeline is token works. A whole bunch of us piled into some of the stuff that Adam was doing over at Token Works, which captured our imagination, especially around what he was doing with Punk Strategy, which I thought was brilliant. I think it solved the issue of the TGE being extractive and not really being how do you say, not really working in unison with the NFT. They were kind of separate ecosystems and they're very extractive. And then if you're trying to launch a token as an NFT project, but then what ends up happening is people front run the NFT, it drives the price up. To claim the token, they dump the token, dump the NFT, and everyone seemingly is hurt by it. The strategy token kind of solves that because it in a loop or a flywheel, it keeps the value within the ecosystem. And if you want to sell out of it, you've got to pay a fee, which then goes back into the treasury, which buys more NFTs and obviously relists them. But I'm just reading between the lines. Obviously, he's launched a new project. In fact, he's launched 2 new projects. How do you guys feel about that? Do you think he's kind of I don't know, here, there, and everywhere, dipping his toe in different things? Do you think he should focus on one? What are your general thoughts, Simon?
Well, but I know, Bud, you'll know more in depth about the whole part of this ecosystem. But one thing that strikes me just from some of the responses to latest posts by him is that it's not really anymore, for me, a matter of whether he's doing great things or not, which he is obviously highly innovative and talented and is producing some really interesting stuff. It's more perception, I think, that people might be having from some of the comments, which is about, oh yeah, okay, but you know what? When are you going to abandon this one? I mean, not saying he does abandon them, but the perception being, we saw one comment that said, no, what will happen? We won't hear any more about this in 7 business days. And there'll be a next thing out. And I think the second that starts happening, people start building up a slight concern or mistrust even in the process of get all excited, shiny new thing, right, had enough of that, moving on. And they would really welcome maybe a bit more time and love and care and detail and seeing things through.
A bit more post-production.
A bit more post-production, as opposed to he's almost so innovative and creative. Once he's done it, he hasn't got the appetite anymore.
The thing, I don't know, Burge, if you saw the tweet where he said, I haven't spent a single penny on marketing. And then obviously fucking Punk Strategy is down 95% from its all-time highs. And I'm like, you are missing the tone of what's happening here. Then he follows up with another tweet saying, I refuse to put out marketing slop. And I'm just like, this is not marketing slop, mate. You've actually got to put, even to a certain degree, if he's not the person to put that out there, reinvesting some of that capital into content creators who are going to talk about it. Because the reality is, there's a whole bunch of people that don't even know this fucking exists. I speak to people, I speak to business people on LinkedIn who are looking to launch an NFT project and also talk about a TGE. And I'm like, hold on a second, there's a much better way of doing this. And they don't even know it exists. And it's like,
yes,
we live in this little world where we think this is our everything and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is this is just about, okay, what have I got and how can I maximize this and actually make this the thing and go all in on my one thing and innovate around my one thing to make it a big part of the ecosystem. Because I think it's be fucking huge. It solves such a big issue.
Don't break the relationship. And don't break the relationship for the people who adopt it. Whether you're doing the right thing or wrong thing, it's perception. That's all it comes down to. And if people perceive something and start getting it in their, be in their bonnet about trust and is he actually going to stick with this or what's going to happen, then that's when it starts to break. So it will be within his, I think within his, in his kind of favor, if he just spent a little bit of time, and if he can't do it himself because he's so excited about innovating the next thing, just get some people to support what you're working on,
He just needs a management or marketing team to help him, post launch once he's kind of, taken it as much as he can, or as much as he wants to, rather. It more seems like that kind of case of like, no, now I want to go and work on other things. But that's fine. But get some people to manage the thing that you've got, especially with the Punk Strategy, which was the golden goose, and clearly was unique in terms of his other projects, because Punk Strategy was really the one that took off and has allowed him to make token works and has allowed him to, you know, make this whole ecosystem. Punk Strategy was so big that it's allowed him to make this token works thing. It's allowed him to basically set up this kind of foundation, etc. But like, I don't understand why you then leave that. He feels like he can't do anything more with it, but there is a lot more that can be done.
Oh, of course. Do you think that the perpetual flywheel, which is basically it just runs by itself, do you think that stands up on its own? Because I think what I'm seeing is actually the recent Punk sale. It didn't have the price effect I thought it would. Obviously, there was a shit ton of Punk Strategy that was burnt, but it didn't actually have the price appreciation that I thought it would. And actually, the Punk Strategy token goes up more when Ethereum goes up. You see, when ETH goes up 10%, Punk Strategy goes up 20%. So this is like, if you think of like you've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, which is indexed against Bitcoin. Then you've got the NFT, which I guess is a leverage bet on ETH. Then you've got the Punk Strategy token, which is a leverage bet on the NFT, which is a leverage bet on ETH, which is indexed to Bitcoin, which is this is a whole fucking 4D chess thing. But the long and short of it is, I almost think it's actually really safe, notwithstanding the fact that it does need some new eyeballs on it in an uptrend. But if you imagine a CryptoPunk selling, I don't think it stays at this price in a bull run, simply because if a CryptoPunk sells for 100 ETH and ETH is at like 3 or 4 grand, that's going to be a lot of Punk Strategy burn.
Yeah, and we've already said before that is marketing, like the sales, because people do comment on it, and especially, and it might be Punk Strategy holders, but it's also other accounts that comment on it and they say, oh, actually a punk has been sold and it was held in Punk Strategy and it's burned this amount of tokens. So there's an element of it does hold up on its own because of that, because mainly because of it being tied to punks, and because as I said just now, that a sale almost becomes this marketing event. It becomes like these viral posts online. That's the reason why. But I mean, it just a little bit more marketing, a little bit of a push and a guiding hand would go a long way. And it's just crazy that that never was like, either he never thought of that, or he was never told, or someone never suggested that to him because he clearly confides within a circle of people.
It's still the only way to participate in CryptoPunks. It's the only way to participate in the price. It is CryptoPunks without spending.
I was going to say that, and one last thing on that is, for me, is that I thought it was going to be a potential gateway to NFTs, because people would get excited about the coin, regardless of where it was coming from. If they could see the price and they got onto that kind of a wave. And I think it stands alone when it's a bull market and when things are firing off. I think it needs a bit of love and care in the bear market, and it needs a little bit of promotion, because it can be in its own right, regardless of the NFT, something exciting for investors.
I am so on board, and I agree with that, because there's a whole bunch of NFT projects that don't even know it exists. And actually, I was quite disappointed to hear the people that we've interviewed, Simon, have said, well, I reached out to him and he didn't reply. And all this
that's coming. That's comes a lot back in the replies. So it would be quite nice if you actually responded. So this is the thing. Don't blow it. All your new innovations will not be taken seriously if you keep walking away and not responding.
I think it's probably maybe a little bit to do with his age or whatever, but he's doing some great stuff. He's having more of an impact than I am. So, hey, listen, I'm not shooting from the hip. Simon, obviously, I'm mindful that you've got to take.
I know. Do you know what my son just said? I've got to go. He just texted me. And
said, no worries.
Okay, because he's got his prom that I've got to take him to.
No, that's awesome. Guys, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the live stream there. Really appreciate you guys joining. Burge, really appreciate you diving in. Simon, I hope your son has a great prom. Guys, if you want to get the recording, you can go to carotlane.com. Obviously, you can also join as a private member. We have a private members club, which you're more than welcome to be a part of. If you've got any questions about it, drop me a DM. We'd love to have you guys on board. Otherwise, we'll catch you next week, Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern time. Thank you, guys. Take it easy.
See you then. Bye.
Take care.